So just to revisit for a quick second, the charts down at the bottom, right? So you had the pyramid at one point. Now we have more of a pie chart, right? The pie chart includes fruits and veggies, grains, and meats and proteins, right? So you should have about carbs about 25%, proteins about 25%, fruits and veggies should be the other 50% on average. That's kind of what the hope is with a meal. I wanted to real quickly go back to the input versus output to just mention a few things before we move on. But um, when we're talking about efficiency and we're talking about the efficiency of food, specifically, we're looking for um, an ideal food crop, one that has efficient production of a large amount of food, but it doesn't have a big impact on the environment, right? So that's kind of what I mean by food efficiency. Um, So there's examples of different foods, especially plants, that are going to most of the time have a lesser effect on the environment. But that's not always true. Okay. And when I look at old world and old food and new food, food sources for the future would be things that we know are hardier, so something that will grow like seaweed, right? We don't have to plant it in land and use up land for it. We can plant it in the water, right? Things that are like that. Some things already have salt in them because of where they grow, so it's easier for us to use in food and not have to do more to it, add anything to it. Okay, let's look real quickly at some world food problems. Okay, so what are some of the major world food problems? Well, partially it's that a lot of the world's malnourished, right? And that's mostly because of unequal distribution of resources, unequal distribution of where the food is located and how it gets to places. Um, Droughts and famines. Uh, all of these are connected to issues mentioned that lead to starvation and hunger. Okay, so um, droughts and famines and unequal distribution of food are huge. Unequal distribution of jobs, right? Unequal distribution of other resources such as income. So these things are all part of the problem and can cause greater effects on the environment too. So think about how we as Americans live and how that can then impact the environment if we're consuming foods that are using a lot more environmental resources, then that's going to obviously have a larger effect on the environment, and then that's going to circle back around and affect people who are in need of food that doesn't that's dependent on the environment and its health, right? So something Pope Francis talks a lot about in Laudato Si. So how do we combat this? So one way is that if the government gets involved, right? So between 1950 and 1970, Mexico increased its production of wheat eightfold. India doubled its production of rice. Worldwide increases in crop yields resulted from the use of new crop varieties and the application of modern agricultural techniques, right? This is a big change that also happened in America, was when we have this increase in modern agricultural techniques. And I'm sure you've read in your English classes as seniors, other than maybe Sarah, but you're reading Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry, and he's talked a lot about the impact that that has on uh, people's way of life and also on the crops themselves. So there was something that we called the Green Revolution, and that was where all of the increase in production of these crops started. Um, and so this has changed the lives of many, and for good and for bad, right? So some of its negative effects are that because there's a larger yield, um, some of these varieties needed more water, fertilizer, pesticides, etc., to have that happen, right? So that was going to be an impact. Um, but some of these things have also gone down since that time, um, and so, uh, but overall, right? The more you have industrialization, the greater impact there is on the common person, the common farmer, right? So you can have things like the Green Revolution, which they have overall yield and quantities that increase that are positive, but then people who are the common